Welcome to another Wheel of Time review. And I'm going to do the same thing I've always done, which is go through the whole episode and do a whole ass discussion. It's probably going to be a 30-minute long video. So if that's something you're into, stick around. If not, sorry about it, but that's just the way we roll here because I want to talk about everything. So we're just gonna go scene by scene and discuss what we like, what we don't like, what's going on, and maybe implications it'll have for the future. So if that's the type of thing you're interested in, stick around, and I guess we'll just get right into it. This is Season 2, Episode 4, Daughter of the Night for Amazon's Wheel of Time. I wonder if that title has any meaning on what we'll find out in this episode. Before I get into this, shout out to all my friends that got to watch the Detroit Lions play because the start time was a little delayed for some people. I was on the East Coast. I was one of them. Got to see some good plays, and I'm sure it's exactly what the direction crew intended was for me to watch the Detroit Lions play football. So, right off the bat, we get this little skit with Ishamael. He is walking through these alleyways, and it looks like he is letting somebody free, and he says Lanfear right in the beginning, and I think they've teased Forsaken so far, so I don't know if we're all supposed to know that that's Lanfear right away. I think some people missed that I'm pretty sure this is supposed to have taken place before episode 1 even started. It's just kind of like a callback. It wasn't like he was doing this as the timeline goes on episode 4. I saw some people thinking maybe that Lanfear was taking Celine's body. I don't think that was a thing. I think this was just them going back. I like the little teaser they did where they kind of panned up and they showed like some abandoned buildings and stuff. That's a big thing in Wheel of Time. With like the stuff from the before the breaking. I honestly would have liked even a better angle shot of it, but it is what it is. It's not what this scene is about. That's just me liking old buildings. But anyways, cool scene. What I really like from this scene is when he's doing like what he's talking as she comes back and he's doing like the blood calls blood. His voice drops like super sinister. Because obviously the actor they have for him, he's kind of got that like peppy attitude in him, which I like. It's kind of a good like goofy bad guy kind of thing. I'm okay with it. But then to actually hear the gruff blood calls blood, I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, decent scene. So the plot line of the episode starts off in Carian with Moraine's sister. Well, she's not. They introduce that she's Moraine's sister in this scene. We find out that she hasn't seen her in decades, probably since Moraine started her search for the dragon, which they kind of hint at in this episode a couple times. Like, something happened 20 years ago and Moraine's never been the same. So I wonder if they'll talk more about what happened when Moraine started looking for the Dragon Reborn. That's probably a spoiler thing. It's not like a huge spoiler because obviously we know what she ends up doing, but there's some things with that. And they introduce again to us how Aes Sedai age slower than other people. They live for hundreds of years. So Moraine's little sister is now elderly, I would say, and so that's something that they kind of share with us. It's an emotional thing that they go throughout the series, and one thing I like about this scene quite a bit is the costume design and the set design when they're sitting, when she's waiting for Moraine to come in and she wants to like have tea with her or something like that. I thought the room looked really nice. I thought her like robes looked pretty good, and I didn't, until I watched the whole episode, this scene frustrated me because I was like, oh man, why is Moraine being such a jerk to her sister? Like, it seems like a political play that she would at least be like kind of nice to her. But as we know, she is on a very time sensitive mission because she catches up to Rand in the nick of time at the end of this episode. So she had no time to spare. So I'm sure it kind of, it made her really sad that she just was going to blow her sister off like this. Um, so watching this again, it's less of a Moraine, why are you being such a jerk, and more of like a dang, like she's so focused on finding Rand that she's just gonna blow off her sister after seeing her for the first time in 20 years. The scene where Rand and Celine are toiling through the wreckage of the inn, not much happens here other than they set up that they're going to go up into the mountains, and that I really like the actress they chose to play Celine. This is going to be my first kind of gripe with the episode and with the pacing of the show so far. So we transition to the tower. Well, actually, first, one compliment. The overarching sweep of the tower with the city in the background, so fucking good. The design for that is so good. It feels, I love it. I think the tower is an absolute slam dunk. I think Tarvalon in the background is an absolute slam dunk. And so now I will transition into my first criticism of the episode, which is we have Nynaeve, who everybody thinks is dead, going through the arches, stuff like that happens. And then they just transition to her being awake and like, I mean, they're doing this like PTSD thing, which because she went through a traumatic thing, but like no reaction from the other Aes Sedai that like she's still alive. No big, oh my god, you channeled in the archways, because we get that through some warder just walking up to her and being like, I heard you channeled in the archways, which is supposedly something that's impossible. So where's that, like, it almost feels like they cut a scene out of the show of her coming back and being like, hey gang, I channeled in the archways, I lived a whole lifetime, I came out a day late, and having all the Aes Sedai be like, what the fuck? You seeing this? Did you see what this chick just did? And they kind of just skip over that and give it to us by some random, at this point, I don't know if it's going to be somebody that is reoccurring, some random ass warder we've never seen before. Just be like, I heard you channeled in the archways. Can I be your warder? Come on. So the rest of that scene, though, is Egwene coming, trying to give her some type of comfort, talk to her. We see that Nynaeve puts on her accepted ring, so she is an accepted of the tower now. And basically, Egwene's trying to comfort her, but like Nynaeve lived those years. So if if you guys didn't catch that, like the time she spent in those arches was lived. It was time, as time passes, it was time lived. So she had kids. She had Lan as her husband for years. And then it's all gone. I think she explains it a little in the episode. So she legitimately just had her children. In her head, her children die. So when Egwene is like sitting here saying, it wasn't real, it wasn't real, it's like, yes, it wasn't real, but like it happened to her. And so I think just making sure we're all like, that happened, and she is basically going through a multi-family death. And it happened yesterday. I'm not sure what the timetable on this, but like it's been less than 24 hours since her fucking husband and children died. So that's pretty rough. And I'm going to jump into what I think is going to be my overall arching criticism of this episode and maybe some of this season so far. It transitions into our next scene with Lan. And I actually thought this was like Nynaeve recalling her dream for a second with him. But no, it's Lan and Alanna and her warders. It's like Maxim, whatever their name are, and some of Alanna's family, I think, and they're all like sitting around having this feast. And like this first part of the scene where it's like all of them hanging out, like I get it, like we want to show like leading, but there's a good like minute and a 2 minute chunk where it all leads up to essentially yet another like Alanna has sex joke, where they're just like, oh, where's the third guy gonna go? Oh, it's been a while since you brought a man home. And there's only 8 episodes in this season, and we're already on 4. The end of this episode, we are going to be halfway through the season. And I guess just the amount of screen time we're dedicating to Alanna, her warders, and even some of this land stuff. I just don't know if. Obviously, there's a direction they want to go with this. In my brain, my measly non-show running grand, knowing what the grand arc of things brain is, don't see where the payoff is for the amount of time you're putting into these characters versus what they can potentially do later in the series. I just don't. So every now, especially since it's been happening a few times and we're starting to lose our amount of time left in the season, it gets a little more and more, not frustrating, but like, come on. And then for it to lead up just to a, which fucking hole does this guy's dick go in kind of joke, was a little dissatisfying. Part of this series of scenes that I do like, though, is, and I kind of talked about this already, is when Alanna is explaining how Moraine changed 20 years ago. I think that's a good little tidbit into why she's so driven on this task. It's why she ignored her sister after not seeing her for decades, because she's going for Rand. She's hunting Rand. And so that kind of gives a good explanation on why she's being a dick in Karyan. I don't think it excuses her behavior to Lan that I talked about in my episode 1 preview when she was just being nasty to him. And then they also say that Lan's bond, it wasn't severed when Moraine was tied off. She released it, which I think if Moraine gets her powers back, my prediction is that maybe I can't say that prediction. That's a spoiler. Even definitely book or show watch only spoiler. My prediction is that if Moraine somehow gets her power back, like they might set up Lan and Nynaeve to be this big, they're gonna be a thing, and then she gets her powers back, and maybe it rips him back to the bond to Moraine if they go that route, which would be pretty unfortunate for Nynaeve. And then Lan's doing this thing where he's saying that he doesn't want, Alanna tells him about Nynaeve potentially being an Aes Sedai soon, and she's like, she's gonna need a warder. And this is true to the story. Lan doesn't want to be her warder because he has this overall sense of like the only thing those men can do in like a love scenario is like get their partners hurt. I think it's in like book 1 or 2, maybe. I can't remember which one, where he has the conversation with Rand, and he's basically like, yeah, don't have love. All we do is get people killed. That is a really good like land thing, and I personally liked that more from. This is gonna get some people get riled up when people talk about like the land changes, but like Lan going into that like emotional like stage when he has like the more stoic vibe from the books was something I really liked, because he tries to have this heart to heart with Rand, even though I don't agree with what he's saying. I think I liked it more coming from that point. I'm sure I'll like it from this point if they include it, but anyways, getting a little long-winded for like a 2-minute scene. Lan is afraid to commit to another one because he feels like a failure, and all he's gonna do is screw up again, get someone hurt. Alana's like, Moraine's built different ever since 20 years ago. It's not you, brother. So Moraine blows off her sister again and takes that Galdean red to go see Logain, which apparently Moraine is the one that set up him being moved from the White Tower to Karyan, with the idea that he would eventually be able to train Rand. And I'm curious how that would work. I guess you can do verbal training, be kind of like, talking to someone on how to build a house instead of showing them, or something even more complex. But I mean, it's literally all she has to try and teach Rand. So she's got to do it. She's got to, even if he gets 5% better from it, it's worth it to her. And so when Logain was cut off from the power, he was stilled. Basically, when that happens to channelers, they want to cease to exist. So she's essentially bribing Logain with this knife to unalive himself, and if he teaches Rand and she's satisfied with what he's teaching him. So that's kind of a big deal. And also the fact that Moraine herself has been cut off. It's kind of like her basically admitting, she's like, yeah, this happens to everybody that's been cut off, like even her. So where you kind of get that. And then she finds out where Rand is staying, and I assume she goes to pay a visit immediately. I kind of already talked about my gripes with that warder coming up to Nynaeve and basically talking about how she channeled in the arches and wondering why all the Ajahs aren't following her around. So I won't repeat that. Kind of a takeaway. But when he says, "I hope you don't choose red," and Nynaeve gives that little bit of side eye, that was pretty good. But in the background, we see Leandrin kind of watching her, and she gets this letter. And I'm not sure if this is the same letter that Alanna reads at the end of the episode about Lanfear being released or something, or if it's a different letter that maybe is what caused her to do what she does at the very end of the episode. We'll have to see about that. Oh, also, I just skipped over the one scene with Elaine and Egwene. I really like the Elaine actress as well, and I hope they keep doing what they're doing with her, because so far there's not a lot of it, but so far everything's been great. So we get our first little setup of some strife in the tower, and I just talked about those notes, so maybe the note I was talking about was a like Red Sister Network note talking about like the Sanchan invading in the west. So she has Leandrin and Lyanna have this conversation about it, and basically sets up the potential dissatisfaction with the current Amyrlin seat's course of actions. There's a plot line that kind of goes along with that, so I can't get too into it, but I hope they do that plot line where they don't need to put a lot of time into it, but I hope they put enough time into it where the decisions that are made regarding that plot line kind of make sense, so it just doesn't happen out of nowhere, because it's a pretty big deal. And yeah, so essentially it sets up that strife between the Red Ajah, at least, and Swan Sanche's current role as the Amyrlin seat. All right, so this next sequence of scenes is stuff that I'm pretty excited to see. We get some more explanation on what's going on with Perrin and his golden eyes and this new fella that showed up to help his party track down the darkness. They explain to us that they are Wolf Brothers, and the way they have done their interpretation of the communication of the Wolf Brothers, I think is a good way to go about it. The whole visions in the head, because basically in the books, it's internal dialogue. So they've kind of done this vision thing. And like I said, I think it works. And basically, Elias is explaining to Perrin that they are both similar and that Perrin can do this himself. And then they see this deer running in the distance, and it's basically like, hey, there's a deer up ahead. We got food to eat. So that's how they go about that. One quick complaint is sometimes I don't think the dead animals in this show look very convincing. This one specifically wasn't too bad, but there's been others in the past where it just doesn't quite make sense the way they scramble guts and stuff around, so there's that. They really hit us with a lot of things pretty quick in this scene. They explained that they've been following them for months. The wolves and Elias are the ones that helped Perrin when they were captured by those white cloaks. that they don't want to get near Aes Sedai, so that's why they've been kind of hanging back. He explains that Aes Sedai don't trust what they don't understand. And it shows that there is an overall distrust of Aes Sedai that does actually exist within this universe. Not everybody is so kosher with them. So we have that, and then we have this little cute scene where Perrin is introduced to Hopper, who is another one of these wolves. He shows little images of him hopping around. I thought that was kind of cute. And basically, also, they talk about how Perrin will lose his taste for cooked meat eventually. And there actually is, like, yeah, I don't know if that's too much, but like they get into like the books where he like starts eating his like steaks and shit more rare as time goes on, I'm pretty sure. So that's we'll see how that pans out. Fast forward, we're back to Lan talking to Steppen. Lan hides this letter that in his bag, and it's got like the background volume. You can hear uh, Ishamael talking and doing like the poem. So maybe this is Lan getting a letter that he's been released. I don't know where that would come from, unless it's coming from Moraine and they're actually still in contact, which would be interesting. I would kind of feel silly about some of my critiques, but I would still stand strong on some of these scenes with Lan being a little heavy-handed and long. I would reinforce that. I think a lot of this scene was it didn't need to happen. I just, other than them just saying, "Yep," they talk about the bond and how Lan's been shielded from time to time, so it's Steppen, blah blah blah. But I just don't think I care in the grand scheme of the story. I think they're starting to become misses for me, especially since I don't even think we've seen Matt yet this episode, or barely in this season. So there's that, and I think that's gonna keep wearing on me as these scenes continue to happen. The scene with Celine and Rand up on the cliffside, she starts talking about this old lover of hers, and she sounds like she's still pretty attached to him. So I don't think that's going to lead to any issues going forward in the future. We finally get some Min and Matt, and they are dicing in a tavern, which dicing in Matrim Cawthon is a overall thing in the show. So getting the first tidbit of that, well, I guess he rolls some dice, I think, in episode 1. But with our new actor and in a new place, and he's losing, I think that's just a nostalgia thing. It's just nice to see that be brought to screen. And then we're also setting up that Min is apparently meeting somebody, which we will get to later in the episode. Leandrin and Nynaeve have a little sit down and a little chatty poo, and they go over the aging thing again, and basically like they talk about Leandrin's son. And then she gives this little thing about how like when you lose what you live for, you have to find something else. And I wonder what her something else could possibly be. End of the episode, we might get a little tidbit of what that could be. But she kind of sneaks in this little thing to Nynaeve about how basically they found Perrin has been captured in the West. And she's like, don't do anything rash, knowing exactly what she's going to do. It's going to be rash. So she kind of plays her a little bit, and we see how that plays out at the end of the episode. And like I said, I really like how they are expanding Leandrin's character motivations and like what she has going on in this season in the show. And I hope they keep doing it. And I almost wonder, actually, no, I was going to guess that they combine her with another character, but I don't think that wouldn't work out once she kind of plays her cards. So we'll have to see what they come up with. Another scene with Lan and one of Alanna's warders, basically going through another group therapy session of telling Lan that no, he's not actually equal to Moraine. Like I said, I don't want to be repetitive and constantly beat these scenes down, but I just don't think they are required in the grand scheme of things, unless there is some it's just not for me. I'm curious as to how it's going to have good payoff, but it does lead to this scene where the other warder is showing Alanna the note Lan received. um I don't know if we're supposed to think that came from Moraine, or is it supposed to be a mystery source? But I'm wondering now at the end of this, and I didn't even think of this at first, if they possibly think that Lan is supposed to be a dark friend based on him having that letter, which would be quite the development. We'll have to wait and see. We get a scene between Moraine and her sister where basically she kind of plays her hand and explains how she is actually the one that is in control of all of the different eyes and ears in Carian now. Moraine, it's not her anymore, it's her sister. And so this is a nice little introduction into how things will work in the future in this city. Basically, this larger grand scheme of nobles scheming with each other with their eyes and ears is something that comes into play throughout the series. So this is kind of a good little tidbit and introduction into that. I like the way they did that. I like the way that she kind of does this power play on Moraine, basically says, everybody that you've been going through and talking today, they all answer to me. So if you want that information you're looking for, you can talk to me. And then we get a little introduction into Elaine and the way her life goes. Basically, she is the daughter heir of Camelin, and she essentially, as daughter heir, has had her entire life mapped out before her. And she's talking to Egwene, who is this girl from the Two Rivers that basically has come to the tower and has her whole life that she gets to decide how she wants to do things. And so they kind of have this back and forth about, she talks about what it would be like. And then they have the little humor where she's like, okay, I'll still take my life because, let's be honest, being rich would be pretty neat. And then Nynaeve comes in and basically she tells Elaine to take a hike, and she lets Egwene know that essentially Loyal and Perrin have been captured and she knows a way out. They have this little back and forth where Egwene basically explains to her, like, she's not doing the tower so she can abandon her family and everybody. She's doing the tower because she feels like she kind of failed them and she wants to be able to protect them in the future. And hopefully now they'll have a little more understanding on that. Like, not necessarily that they'll both love being in the tower, but that Nynaeve will understand what Egwene's coming from. And then on to what was the first big reveal of this episode. Nynaeve and Egwene are sneaking out of the tower to go save their friends. And then, of course, Elaine, being the nosy person that she is following them. I'd have to go back and see if that's how things roll out. I don't quite remember, but I don't really care because it works in this situation. And basically they're going to sneak out, and Leandrin is there with them, and she's basically like, well, she only expected Nynaeve to come because, well, I won't get too far into that, but basically she says, you're a complication to Elaine because she is the daughter heir, so if she goes missing, it's gonna draw more attention. So I wonder if that's how they'll introduce Elida. Basically, once it's known that Elaine is missing, she'll come into play and be like, she'll come to the tower or something and be like, yo, what the fuck? But anyways, Leandrin basically blasts him, knocks him out, and I would say that is definitely a breaking of the three oaths, because she used the power to cause harm to people that weren't like a threat to her. So yeah, there's that. Anyways, she knocks them all out, and then we are left to wonder what that's about. Big betrayal from a character that I'm happy how they've been building her up, and I'm interested to see where things keep going. Hopefully once she serves her purpose here, if they've built her up like this, we keep going with it. All right, so this next scene with Min has been discussed a little bit, and I do not think that this is intended for Min saying that's not her being a dark friend. And I'm pretty sure this is a dream too. This is a dream situation. The way they do the camera panning, I really like that. With like the weird stutter steps, so hopefully that like will help us. I liked it. I thought it was a cool effect. And basically, what we get from this conversation is that Leandrin somehow promised that if she takes Matt to Carian, then maybe they will help get rid of her visions somehow, which is something that they don't know how to do because they don't understand Min's vision. So that would be another lie, personally, if that's what happened. But then basically what happens is Ishamael comes to her in her dream and pitches that if she brings Matt to him in Carian, he can make it all go away, which probably isn't true, but you never know. I mean, he could just kill her. Um, and I don't think she was accepting his offer at the end when she says what's in Carian. I think she's just trying to get more information, possibly to help with the situation, because Min is pretty smart like that. I got a feeling they're going to set her up to be like a cunning kind of planning type person that gets to know things. And so, yeah. But overall, I don't think this was her being a dark friend. They're trying to say she's a dark friend. I think this was just her getting the sales pitch, which is how a lot of people get roped into being friends of the dark. They essentially are given something they want basically for their soul and promise to become a dark friend, which does have like a binding thing. And I think this is essentially her turning it down, but also trying to get information out of it. Because we have to also remember, too, she's seeing these visions of Matt where he's stabbing Rand. Obviously, she doesn't know what that's about, but like she likes Rand. So in her mind, Matt might not be a great person. So like handing him over, doing this for Leandrin, might have seemed like a good idea for her. Because like for all she knows, Matt is like some type of murderer. After all, he was locked away in the cells. So also, another thing, does that mean that Leandrin purposely let them both out, knowing that Min and Matt would hook up, so then Min could take her to Carian, so then the Dark could get Matt and Min? Interesting. So there's that. And on to the big reveal, big final scene of this episode, which I'm glad I rewatched these like much closer because there's a couple of things that I didn't notice, first of all, that I'm getting on the second time around. But first of all, Rand is still useless with a sword. That's one thing. I hope they fix that soon. And I hope they fix it in a good way. But essentially, he is able to channel and kill this Fade, which leads to the ensuing conversation between him and Celine. Which, watching back and paying more attention to her, we have the actress is pretending to obviously to be her character, but then her character is also trying to act like somebody that would be shocked and confused by seeing that Rand can channel. And you can almost see like glimpses of excitement on her face as she's like talking to him right after it happens. Like she's trying to avoid being excited, and then she like one point she goes back and is like back to being terrified. And it's kind of, I think it was really well done how they kind of go back and forth here. So they kind of keep talking to each other and they go through this nice little emotional exchange, and Rand looks all sad, and it reminds me of the Simpsons Ralph Wiggum thing where it's like you can almost pinpoint the exact moment his heart breaks in half. And it was just very sad to watch, but it was a nice little scene. And then they kind of go back and forth about basically saying that he needs to just be who he is, because we know that she is, well, if you've watched the episode, we know she's a bad guy. So she wants Rand to embrace his power and to go cray-cray, but she's also trying to hold back and not be too upfront about this. So she goes into this whole little speech about how her ex-lover, blah, 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 she hit herself, yada, yada, yada. Well, turns out the side of her that she was hiding probably was not the best side. So interesting how they kind of decided to do this, and I actually really liked the back and forth on this scene. This is an example of an addition to the show that wasn't there before that I think maybe is a good one. So we jump back to Alanna and her warders again so they can read this letter that was in Lan's night bag. That I'm kind of curious how this all played out and came to be. I still just don't know why this needed to be them, but I guess you needed someone to narrate it. Also, I guess one of them must be able to read the old tongue, because they're like, Lan doesn't know what this means, but Maxim does. I mean, I guess Alanna could have told him, or unless he reads Old Tongue. I'm surprised that Lan wouldn't know, especially traveling with Moraine for 20. Whatever. I guess this just are they just gonna make Alanna and her warders like important characters, and we're just gonna have like jokes about them having three ways for the next 6 seasons? I don't know. I think that's me getting a little too ahead of myself. Maybe I should finish the rest of my coffee, but anyways, jump back to how they're kind of doing this exposition, and obviously by now they are revealing to us that this Selene cat is this Lanfear. And so we go through the next scene, which is definitely quite the shebang for the end of an episode. Yeah, so we get our big reveal that Selene is actually Lanfear, and she's doing, I don't know if she was like trying to bond Rand right here or something. I guess we'll never know. It looks like she's doing some type of airweave, and I can't remember if that's how the bonding goes, but surprise, Moraine finally tracked down Rand, and she fucking shanks her, cuts her throat, lets her fall on the ground, and then Rand, obviously upset that she just fucking killed his girlfriend, pins her up against the wall with an airweave, so he figured out how to do that. And then you can see he's channeling, he's pissed, and you can see like the little black pieces in it for the taint. And basically Moraine explains to him, like, hey, that's Lanfear. I can't lie to you. You know I'm telling the truth, which I think at this point she can lie, right? Can she lie? I can't remember because of losing her. I don't remember. But anyways, and basically she's like, yeah, that's a really evil person that you were just about to stick your dick in, crazy. So maybe we should get out of here before, because guess what? She's not dead. She's going to come back, and we need to go. So anyways, that was a pretty climactic finale to what I thought was a pretty good episode. Obviously, we have the big Lanfear reveal. Moraine and Rand are back together. And then other big points, we have Leandrin betraying Nynaeve and Elaine and Egwene. We have Perrin learning about the Wolf Brother stuff. We have Min and Matt are on their way to Carian, so hopefully we get some reunion stuff. Logain potentially teaching Rand how to use the power. We'll see how that goes. So it seems like everybody is going to be converging on Carian, kind of like how they did on Tar Valon in the last season. So everyone's probably going to get together, and we'll see what happens from that point. Obviously, Perrin won't because he's on the other side of the world, but we'll see what they plan on doing for that. Oh, well, then I guess the girls are, well, I can't say that. So yeah, there's a lot of big stuff. There's a lot of stuff I really liked in this episode. The visions for Perrin was well introduced. I think that's going to work out well, with like explaining internal monologues that he's going to have, these conversations that he has with the wolves in his head. And then, basically whatever Leandrin is doing. Hopefully they keep expanding on her character, because I really like what they're doing. And hopefully, I guess now with everyone converging, maybe we'll get more of each character finally, more screen time for these characters. Because overall, I think I'll get into my biggest complaint now, which is Alanna and her warders eating up tons of screen time. For like, they had more screen time than Matt by a long slide, and I just understanding their role in the story. Obviously they can change things, but is it changing it for the better? I don't know. And I just can't see a world where in an 8-episode season at an hour a piece, for a long series like this, where adding all this time for these extra characters is going to have the payoff versus developing our core cast even more. I think they're giving fair screen time to most of them. Like Rand was a little lacking until this episode. He got a lot more time. I still think Perrin is lacking, and then especially Matt, especially with a actor change and his story completely being butchered. Maybe they're just wiping the slate with it, and then once they all get back together, they'll kick things back off where things were. I mean, if I remember right, Matt doesn't really I mean, Matt's kind of doesn't come in as a strong character until even later in this book or the next book. So I guess I understand that. Um, Unless they kill him. So then he won't be anything at all. But either way, so yeah, those are my big positives and my big kind of complaint about this episode. Lot of positives in this one, and really my complaints have boiled down to just one that is kind of the same complaint, which just centralizes around screen time, which kind of goes back on Amazon. Not giving a lot of time for this show to be portrayed. It's a massive series, and they're just like 8 episodes a season or whatever, and only so many seasons. So that's unfortunate, but yeah, no, great episode, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next one, to seeing what's up with Lanfear and what they're gonna do, and hopefully we get some more character reunions after the end of last season, and hopefully people reacting to Rand not being dead is better, or it's well done, and we'll just have to wait and see.